Hi, it's Gil Robles back with another video, and I am continuing to use Rebelle because I like the brushes, the very unique brushes that it has. And I want to see if I can also give a little bit more detail as to what it is that I'm doing, because I had a comment that basically someone wasn't able to follow along. But then again, these are not really that type of video. I guess I give a hint of what it is that I'm doing. Like right here, I'm obviously using the pencil tool and sketching and trying to map out where I'm going to lay in the masses, or separate the different lights and darks and so forth. And so that's what I'm doing just right now. I'm just trying to figure out the paint. The beginning of a painting is really trying to figure out where everything goes. You're finding things, and I'm not like there's nothing final about anything that I do right here. And part of it is just getting the color down, but also with an idea that there's some values and color temperature and so forth that I'm thinking about. Everything is in warm tones right now. But and also just to add, the last paintings that I've been doing have been using a kind of a grayscale underpainting, and I'm trying something different that actually I'm not. It's not too different because this is how I've worked most of the time, and that is by just painting directly, doing sort of an alla prima type of approach here, where I'm just trying to paint everything all at once. And so I'm painting more direct, like before with using the gray tones or the gray values, and I'm just working on my drawing, and I'm working on where the values go. I'm not being so concerned with color because I'm separating the two problems. Over here, I'm trying to do everything all at once. Like I'm considering the color, also trying to control the values and making sure that I make a separation as to not just what is light and what is dark, but what are the values in between that. And so with that, it's very important. Two things. One, I don't want to start with something completely white as far as the background. Having a sort of off-white, or probably would have been better if I had grayed up a bit or darkened it a little bit, but it helps me see the values a lot better than having the stark white. And the other thing is that I immediately put in a background, because then I had the background color and value to compare the colors that I put into the rest of the image, and which would be right here, the face. So I'm trying to accomplish two things right now. I'm trying to, well, actually more than two things. I'm trying to place everything proportionally and find out where everything goes. I'm also making corrections as far as the value is concerned. And then I am thinking about color. I'm thinking about cool color and warm color, and that's that. Those are the things that I am thinking about: the drawing, the values, the colors, and to that end, I am kind of creeping up on the image. I kind of mapped it out in the beginning with the pencil, and then as I go on and I add the details, I try to hold on to that structure, and because that's initially where I place everything, the eyes, nose, and make sure everything's on the right axis, and then add the thinking about values, and then I'm still thinking of color last. I guess the two most important things to make this successful are the values and the drawing and the values. Those are more important than anything than the color right now. Not that the color is unimportant, but I can be off in the color. Or I can I can paint this all in blues or greens or whatever, but but the way that sort of thing would work is if the drawing and the values are correct. So the first important thing, of course, is the drawing and the value. So now, as I establish that, now everything is about correcting what I initially put down. Now that I mapped out where everything goes, I have a general idea of the values, though this is not perfect. But what I'm doing for the rest of the painting, really, after you laid it down, after you try to figure out where everything goes, and everything is more of a guesswork. Everything is more of, just trying to guess where everything goes and guess what the value is. So now that I put down my first guesses, for lack of a better term, now what I'm doing is correcting everything, making corrections, fixing things here and there, making subtle changes, and sometimes thinking things 2 or 3 or 4 steps down the line. Like I don't paint the eyes directly. I'm not like working one area and move on to the other. I'm trying to build a thing as an organic whole, so that it's not just eyes, nose, and mouth floating in space, but all of it is connected to each other, and they all make the face, make the face. And with that, I mean, one of the things that I enjoy about using this software is that the added thing is that without even trying, it gives me a feeling of a very natural brush. Like the thing that I use, and I'll show later on as I end this video, is if you look to the right, not all the way to where the layers palette is, but to the left of that, there's a bunch of sliders. And right in the middle is a slider for the acrylic brush or the impasto, and then you could see there's a slider for how thick the paint can be. Now you could paint this whole thing on 0 and work on it till the very end, and take the slider and move it over, and it will show all of these thick brush strokes, which is what I like, because sometimes while you're painting, the thickness of these impastos get in the way, and it can be very distracting. Plus, it builds up too quickly. So what I do, like I'm using the acrylic brush right now, and I can adjust the sliders. There's and then under the sliders, you see on the left hand side, under the sliders for the properties of the brush, there's several that you can choose from. I'm using the normal brush. Sometimes all the way to the right, there's I think it's called a hairy brush or whatever. I don't know, but this is no normal brush. But there's several choices down there. There's flats, there's round, and then there's that hairy brush. And then you use whatever. I like using that hairy thing, especially for obviously the hair, the beard. But sometimes it provides a kind of crosshatch where you can build the image up little by little. Also, to the very right, what I like to do is I start working on one layer, and that's where I do the initial drawing and so forth. And then I add a layer on top of that. After I carry that to a certain degree, I add a layer on top, and I decrease the opacity. Sometimes I work just without decreasing the opacity, but most of the time I decrease the opacity because I'm trying to not obliterate totally what's underneath, but to add to it and to either smoothen transitions or add, say, a color temperature, whether something's warm underneath, I might throw in a blue, or vice versa. Something's red, I mean something's blue, I might throw in a red, and so forth, just to see, you can mix color that way by opening up another layer, and then decreasing the opacity, and have what you paint on top of it affect what's underneath. So, and then I do it two ways. I can either affect the color temperature, or I can affect the value that way. It's kind of like glazing, like you would do in an oil painting, where you paint underneath. You'd have a painting underneath, and then you add a thinner coat of paint, so that part of what's underneath will show through what you painted over with. So that's how I use the layers. That's how I use this brush. And from time to time, you see on that row of brushes on the upper left, there's a whole mess of little icons. On the upper left, the very left corner, there's an icon for a blending tool. And then next to it, there's that smudge tool. Now, one of the things is that when I increase the impasto, and you see a thicker brush stroke, sometimes it can be very distracting. Sometimes it can be a little bit too much. So what I do is I use that blend tool to knock it down some, and to smoothen out some of those brush strokes, so that it just doesn't overdo it. And apart from that, that's really it. That's really what I'm trying to accomplish. Everything from here on in is all just being subtle, just not being subtle. Being subtle in the sense that all I'm doing is making subtle changes here and there, and some of it is really still finding it and discovering the changes I need to make, or the problems I need to solve in here. Like for instance, these eyes are too dark right now, so I have to continue to work on them by working the area around them. So if you notice also, I keep jumping all over the place, and part of it is because I may not know the solution to a certain passage. Like, say I'm working on the eye, and I may not know what to do with it right away. So I'll go work in some other part of the painting and say, let me come back to this. I remembered a painter by the name of Bert Silverman said that that's how he approached some of his paintings. It's like sometimes he doesn't have an answer for an area right away, but he doesn't have to solve it just then and there. He can go work on another part of the painting and come back and finish that when he's, and sometimes when he's figured it out. And sometimes what happens is when you work on another part of the painting, because you're painting this to show it as a whole, as a one unit, as one face, is like all these different parts affect each other, so that working on one part, you realize the solution for another. I hope that makes sense, but it does to me. It does to me. This is the way I've worked, and I've always worked. As a matter of fact, one of the things is that in painting direct, like I'm painting now, this is the way when I paint traditionally, this is the way I've always worked. I've rarely used like a grisaille underpainting. I just decided to do that because I figured, it actually helps speeds up the process. It was more of a test for me, or an exercise, because when I do illustration work, I'm trying to look for a process that I can complete a painting in less time and with less trouble. So by solving the drawing and by solving the values, the painting is more than half completed, and I just add the colors to that. So I just recently did an illustration after practicing that on Rebelle and Sketchbook, I just recently did an illustration where I did just that, and I was able to finish it in less time, and I was able to. It also was pretty successful, and because the more guesswork you take out of it, the better it is. It doesn't, you know, especially if you're working for a client, you want to do something that you know is going to work. Right now, what I'm doing is a lot of I'm doing this painting because I really, the purpose for this painting, it's kind of nice to do a self-portrait, but the purpose for it is really for me to get more and more familiar with Rebelle, so that when I paint using this software, I'm more familiar with the brush. I'm more familiar with the different things, the different brushes and the different settings on the brush and the different settings on the layers and so forth, so that when I do use Rebelle more often, I can do it with more confidence and more of an understanding of how to use the software. This is still pretty new to me, but with the things that I like about software like Rebelle and Sketchbook is that it's pretty easy to use. Now, the more you use it and the more you understand it, the better you get at it, but you can pretty much use it right out the box. It's just not that difficult of a software. It's not that difficult of a learning curve to know. And the refreshing thing, of course, is that the brushes look so real, so much like the traditional brushes. So yeah, so that's pretty much it. Like I said before, I guess right now would be a good time to talk about my Patreon page. So if you like this channel, you like my videos, and you have signed on or subscribed and so forth, I just want to let you know I do have a Patreon page where you can support this channel and support what I do. And also because I keep thinking that with the support I get, I can basically upgrade my equipment. Like this computer could use some upgrade, especially when using software like this, because it takes so much memory. And sometimes, it kind of slows me up. And you can't see it because I'm speeding this video up, but if you were to see it in real time, there are times where I have to wait for the software to catch up. And I work pretty fast, so it would be good. It would be good to have more RAM memory. It would be good to have a better graphics card and so forth. These are all problems I gave to my son to solve for me, since his major in college has to do with computers. So he's already said he's going to help me out with that. And so all I got to do is worry about learning the software, which I'm doing now. And really, when I speed these videos up, you can't really see how it slows me up. But it can be annoying at times. And that has nothing to do with the software. It has more to do with how antiquated my computer is. But I will solve that problem soon. So again, my Patreon page, I have more videos there. I actually have more real-time videos there. Sometimes I share some of my YouTube's video there. And also, depending on, one of the things, if you join and become a patron, you are entitled to a sketchbook. I always do a bunch of sketches throughout the week, and I collect them. And what I do every month, I just create a PDF, about a 16-page PDF, where I include these sketches and upload them on my Patreon page and make it available to my patrons to download. And also, there are videos that are, of course, real time, where I share my process videos and so forth. And for also, depending on the tier that you choose, I also offer high-res image of selected by me every month of one of the paintings that I've done. So that's on my Patreon page. So please, if you want to support this channel, go right ahead over there. I'll leave the link below, and you can support this channel and become a helper and so forth. I would appreciate it very much. Other than that, there's also a video on Gumroad where I offer a tutorial on how to paint a portrait, a digital portrait, and I'm using Sketchbook Pro. But one of the things is that the way I work on digital, the way I create a digital painting, the way I approach it is applicable to just about any software. This is the same way. The only difference being that the brushes are different, and sometimes some of the software behave differently. Like I like Sketchbook Pro, and Rebelle, but Rebelle's brushes behave differently. It's more, it's similar to Art Rage in a way. But while the acrylic brush may be similar, I find it a lot easier to use in Art Rage. Also, the watercolor brush, it has no equal. To me, I have never seen, as far as software, that it can imitate the watercolor brush as well as Rebelle does. And so it is really unique. Now, I know when I say this, other people will say, well, what about this software? What about that software? I'm sorry. If you feel that way and you feel that you like your software that you use, that's fine. I mean, you do what works for you. In my opinion, this watercolor is different than anything else. And the acrylic, while you can find it in similar brushes in other programs, this is easier to me than the other programs that I've used, and so really this software is less of a mystery, you know. And like I said, software like Rebelle and like Sketchbook is easier to use straight out. You know, you can learn as you use it. And there are videos. There are tons of videos on YouTube. There are tons of They have a manual that you can download on the Escape Motions website, and also a manual for Sketchbook Pro. So there's tons of way you can learn. I kind of like the hands-on approach. I kind of like stumbling on things and fighting things and learning about the software as I go along. So that's pretty much what I do. And not that I don't read manuals and that I don't look up on YouTube or any other place that I can as far as how to use the software, but basically I learn things better by having a hands-on approach, and I think that's anybody. You gotta have a hands-on approach. So again, and the last thing I really do like about Rebelle is that it's affordable. It's $89.99. Now that may seem like a lot, but not really. Not when I think about all the money that I spend on paints and paint tubes and brushes and surfaces to paint and so forth. This is not a lot of money, really. $89 is not a lot. And of course there's Sketchbook, which is now free, so you can just go ahead to the Autodesk website and download Sketchbook for free, you know. So those are the things that I like about these softwares. One, it's the brushes are unique, and two, they're very, very easy to use, and finally it's affordable, you know. And I highly recommend the experience of using these softwares. Now, the thing I wanted to show just before I go off, one of the things that I gotta apologize, you see there's a jump in the image. I lost some of this video, but one of the things I want to show you, I'm using the slider right here for the acrylic brush, and you see how it changes the impasto and how it really shows a thick level of impasto. You can just use that slider right there to change it on, like I said, right next to the layer box. And this is the final painting, so I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe if you haven't already, if you did enjoy this video, and also feel free to leave comments. I welcome them, I enjoy them, and I do my best to keep up with them. So until next time, thank you so much. I will be back soon. Bye bye.